This episode of Wardogs Hour Podcast is brought to you by Wardogs NFT. We are three dumb digs aiming to make a huge difference in the Web3 space. For more information regarding our Wardogs NFT project, head to our socials, Wardogs_NFT on both Instagram and Twitter, and our website, www.wardogsnftrange.com. The Wardogs Hour Podcast aims to inspire people by sharing real-life experiences and what possibilities we have at our fingertips using our connections, skills and disciplines learned from our time in the military. Let's spin some mad worries and have a laugh.
Hi, boys. I have a question for the men. What the fuck do you want? What is it? I can't figure it out.
Our guest today served for 6 years as a warfare and logistics officer in the Royal Australian Navy. While serving, Lachlan deployed a number of times before eventually leaving the service in 2020. Since then, he's been a very busy man. He has started his own business, Atlas Property Group, become an author of an Amazon best-selling book, A Military Guide to Property Investing. He's a two-time finalist in the 2022 REB Awards, and most recently, he's become a lecturer at UNSW Business School. Lachlan Vidler, welcome to the Wardogs Hour.
Thanks for having me, boys.
Mate, first of all, congratulations on all your achievements and success. But let's wind things back a little bit. What made you join the Navy?
It's a good question, and I find when I do have a chat with people, whether it's clients, whether it's podcasts, whatever it is, I get the question a lot, and I still, honestly, to this day, don't really know. I think leaving school, I wanted to get out of home. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to do something fun and exciting. I had a bit of military service in my family, so my dad was in the Navy for a bit. My grandfather on his side was in World War II. My great-grandfather on my mum's side was in World War II. So we've got a bit of family history there going back. I think my grandma does it, and she can say that we go back to the Boer War. So, we've got a bit of background there. But I think for me it was really about just getting out, doing something, being able to see the world, get some good training, get some good experiences. And I think that I knew I'd never stay forever, but I knew it was a great way to sort of start out my working life.
So how old were you when you first joined?
18, straight out of school.
Straight off the block.
Straight in. Yeah. Straight off the block.
How did you find it joining as a young fella? Was it a bit scary at first, or did you think, I got this?
I was definitely a bit, nervous. I still remember to this day, burned in my memory, getting the bus from Sydney down to Jarvis Bay to HMS Creswell, walking into my cabin for the first time, looking pristine, some folders on the desk of all the material we were going to cover, so we're starting to flick through it a bit, and then just sort of going, oh shit, what am I in for here?
Yeah. And how long is your officer training?
So Creswell for Navy officers is 20 weeks, and that's just sort of like how to, exist in the Navy, how to be an officer in general. There's no job-specific stuff. So that's why it's a bit shorter. Work on me, I think we could probably do it a bit longer. I mean, you look at RMC, that's 18 months. Probably doesn't need to be that long. I think we're the same as Air Force, for Air Force officers. But yeah, I think it could probably go a bit longer. But yeah, we do a lot more on-the-job stuff or job-specific training afterwards. Yeah,
and do you want to talk us through that? What exactly is a warfare and logistics officer?
Yeah, so a maritime warfare officer is, I guess, a ship driver. That's the old term for it. So they're basically captain's representative. Career path is you start out being an officer of the watch, so leading a deck team, and then you progress through to being a captain. I did that for a little while, but then I wanted to sort of go in a bit of a different direction. I sort of knew that I wanted to set myself up for a bit of a better time on the outside, or at least what I wanted to do. And then that was why I decided to change to logistics, because there's not many ships to get driven down George Street in Sydney, but logistics could set you up a little bit better. So that was why I wanted to do that. And I had a business degree, and I was pretty interested in business, so I changed to do that. And then obviously a logistics officer handles the logistics on a ship. So there's, only ever a couple of them on board, and they handle, everything from port visits to resupplies to, who's getting what for dinner each day. So pretty varied role there.
Yeah, awesome. And deployment. So you deployed a few times. What parts of the world did you get to?
So I guess probably like a lot of Navy people, unlike you Army boys, it's a bit hard for us to get to the other side of the world. So I did a lot of, I guess, regional stuff. So I did one called Operation Render Safe. So that's UXO disposal, bomb disposal stuff. So we went to an island called Bougainville. It's an autonomous region of Papua New Guinea. And there's just lots of old remnants of war from World War II there. So we went there for, I think, 3 or 4 weeks. And it supported, clearance divers, Army bomb disposal, Air Force bomb disposal, and did that. I did border protection, like a lot of Navy people. So that was just up north, out of Darwin. Just doing patrols. Out of Darwin on the patrol boats, and then I also. Just did stuff around the near region, so Southeast Asia, and then, throughout the Pacific Islands, things like that.
I know a lot of the boys from Fibre had to get on that boat, that border patrol boat, and I'd be waiting for them to come back in your sand. They're like, I'm never going back out to sea again. Yeah, this was horrible. And I'm pretty sure there was a cyclone that blew in too. So was it Sea State, I think it is, when it gets real hectic. So they're like, mate, we're never going back out on that bloody boat again. They reckon it was just a tin can, like a death trap.
Yeah. It gets a bit like that, and depending on where you go, it can blow a bit of a gale, and then sea state just refers to how big the swell is, and it can get a bit hairy. It was always funny whenever Army boys would come on board, you'd see everyone would be hanging their heads over the side for the first day or two.
We're land mammals, mate. So although some of us are airborne, but mate, they can have that. But yeah, land mammals only. I mean, if it gets anything above a metre, I'm out. I'm so sick. Can't handle it. And it scares the living shit out of me. You got nowhere to go. So if the boat goes down, where are you going? Like,
oh mate, you're stuffed. There's nothing you can do.
You're gone. And why would you want to be on there if a torpedo comes flying into the boat as well? Yeah, where are you going? Oh mate, I never understood it, but anyway, so scary. Boats scare me.
Just shark food, mate.
Yeah, you just turn into bait. Yeah, exactly.
So have you got any highlights from your time in?
Oh, I mean, I think, and I don't know if you boys are the same, but like the 1% stuff, the stuff that's burned into your memory, like they were the best times ever. And you look back and I mean, I've now been out for sort of 2-3 years now, and that's the stuff I remember. But then obviously there's like the 99% day-to-day stuff where you're like, oh, fuck, this is shit. Yeah. What am I even doing here?
Yeah, just boring and...
non-teching.
Yeah.
I love non-teching. That was my most favourite thing to do, mate. Non-tech the same thing every week. For 52 weeks a year, that was good. Yeah,
but I don't know. For me, it was just getting out and about. Like pulling in Singapore, right? Going for a run on the town in Singapore, or just getting out and about. Being on there with good mates. It's been in the shit situations. Everyone's looking at each other. Everyone wants to punch a wall, and we're like, "Fuck, we just got to get through this." And then you get to the other side, and you're like, "Yeah, unreal."
Yeah, I'd imagine on some of those smaller ships. You could get a bit cabin feverish as well. Like, is it hard to keep friendly with everyone if you've been at sea for a while?
Well, it is, but what you find is that on the smaller ships / boats, like say a patrol boat versus a frigate or one of the LHDs, it's a lot more casual on there. But it kind of has to be, right? Like on one of the majors, the captain's the captain. Captain often will stay in their cabin very frequently. They don't dine with even the officers, because obviously officers and sailors are separated in their messing arrangements. The captain won't even eat with the officers. It's very much, quite formal a lot of the time. But patrol boats, way more casual, like small boat, there's like 20 people on there. There's often only, say, 3 officers versus, 15 to 20 sailors. So at least from the officer side, we have to become a lot more tight-knit. But even the sailors, it wasn't uncommon that, you'd have nicknames, or you might occasionally get called by your first name or things like that. But that obviously just wouldn't happen on a big ship.
Yeah, a lot more regimented. And
Well, you'd have to be, wouldn't you? It's the same as the battalion. You've got your tight-knit group. I mean, our officer in mortars was, he was like one of the boys. But, when you start stepping up, they get a bit more strict in how you talk to them.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's good. I think it's good because, at the end of the day, right, like, and I guess I bring that officer perspective to it because I wasn't a sailor per se. The sailors, the diggers, whatever terms you want to call it, those are the guys that were doing the work, the big work. We would think and we would, be the ones taking on the risk per se. But, the enlisted would be the guys doing the work. And I think that when you're working in those tight teams, you've got to be a little bit more casual. You've got to have that respect for each other of like, whatever it is that's going on. I don't know. I can't think of a good example. But you know what I mean? Like, you've got to have that sort of comfort level with each other and that trust.
Yeah,
100%.
Did you have a preference?
In terms of like big ships or small ships?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess both. To be honest, I probably preferred big ships slightly just because they would do more things and you could go more places, do more things. It was a bit more exciting. But the casual atmosphere of the small boats, I definitely liked a bit more. I don't know.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And as you mentioned, you've only been out for 2 years, and like we said in the intro, you've got a fair bit done. So transition is usually the hardest bit for vets, and you've made yours seem fairly seamless. So, but personally, how did you find the process?
I guess personally, I actually did find it quite easy. And part of that was that when I first left, I was in Canberra, and then I went into a consulting role, and a lot of that was back to military, so I was consulting to Army. So, I left, but I was still involved. And I think that probably helped a little bit. It wasn't as much of a, my entire life was turned upside down. I was going to do something entirely different. But I think as well, I left with a degree. I left with half a master's. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew that my background, my skills, my qualifications fit that. So I was able to sort of fit the square peg hole that little bit better. Like I was maybe I was an octagon, but I wasn't a full triangle kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's one of those things that it's just I was lucky, and I know that I was lucky, and I've got mates who have now left, and I was working with people when I left that had also transitioned out that really struggled, and I think that I was probably one of the luckier ones on that side.
I think preparation's the key. So you obviously prepared for your exit from the military. There's a big lesson in this for all those that are wanting to transition out. Probably the best lesson is not to knee-jerk and go, like a lot of us did. I'm putting my D in, I'm over this, see you later, get me out. I want to fast-track this. But realistically, you need to be planning that for sort of, a year to 18 months so you can get some kind of qualification under your belt, maybe a diploma, I'm not sure, but actually plan it out so you're not just leaving and then you're on your ass and you're like, uh-oh, I'm going to have to sign the line again. I got no money, here it comes.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's one of those things, I think you've got to, if you can know what you're going to go into, right? If you're going to go be a chippy, know what the pathway is to be a chippy. If you're going to go be an accountant, know what the pathway is to be an accountant, right? And either start to tick those things off or don't, but, know what you're doing, know what the steps you've got to do so that you don't run out and you're like, oh, holy shit, like, what am I meant to do now,
Yeah, and because there is those springboards so you can study while you're serving.
Yeah.
But it took me a long time. We served together, the two of us, and I've been out for about 10 years and finally circling back and doing something together, I think has been really good for us because you know and understand each other more. It's not like you're walking into a civilian job and like people work just a little bit differently. That's why you see, I think, a lot of vets going out and working for themselves as well because they know they can rely on themselves.
I'd agree, 100%. I think we all, whether you're Army, Navy or Air Force, whether you were a soldier, sailor, airman or an officer, we all have, I reckon, a 70 to 80% commonality in the way that we think, the way that we look at decision-making, the way that we talk, the way that we, conduct our actions, things like that. And I think you're right. It just makes it really easy and seamless to do things together because you just kind of get it, and you can quickly pick up. Like when I interview people to say work for me or worked for me in other jobs, and they might have had a military background, it was pretty easy for me to quickly tell whether they were a good performer, whether they were, one of the shit ones that, you probably won't want working with you anyway. And it all came, I think, from that commonality. So I totally agree. I think it's a big reason why, a lot of vets end up working together or doing things with their mates or stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's just that reliability and work ethic.
It's the work ethic. No one's ever going to match your standard, which is why we become good businessmen. Because I found personally that all my civvy mates don't have any sense of urgency. Like I try to get things done as quick as possible, and then my civvy mates, like for example, God bless him, my roommate, like just to even get to the gym in the morning, it's like a 45-minute process. Whereas I'm up, bed's made, shoes are on, and I'm gone. It's why we become good businessmen as well, is because of our standards, our high standards, and standards within ourselves too. So we keep them to a good level.
Yeah. Oh man, I totally agree. It's so funny when I'm doing deals for clients, right? And we buy property all over the country. So I've got time zone issues. I've got, I've just got all sorts of issues, right? Because we buy across the country, and maybe issues is the wrong word, just complications, right? Complicating factors. And the amount of times I have agents, especially ones I haven't worked with before, that are like, oh man, like settle down a bit, right? Like, we'll get it to you when we get it to you, a contract, for example, or like I'll call you back at, 4:00, and it's like 4:45, and I call them and go, hey mate, like, you said you'd call me. Where are you at? And you're like, oh yeah, sorry, I just got a bit busy. I was going to call you in the next couple of minutes anyway. I totally agree with you. Same thing, right? It's just our standards are always higher. We're always pushing for more. Yeah.
And it's funny you say that about the time zones too, because obviously in this game that we're in now, this Web3 game, we have time zone issues every day of the week. So we're talking to people in America, Europe, but they set meetings, and I just had one before. It's 2 a.m. Will you be able to make that? Yep, no worries. There's just no questions asked. But, if that was another person, non-military related, they'd be like, nah, I'm setting that back. As much as it sucks, 2 a.m., I'll be there. And I'll be there early too. So what's the old saying? If you're not 5 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late. So, that's how I look at it.
Love it.
Yeah. So, I say it's our standards that set us apart at the moment.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think if there's one thing I would definitely say to people that are looking at leaving or maybe have just left, and you're trying to work out how do you assimilate back into being a civilian? And for a lot of people, like, myself, 18 years, I wasn't really an adult when I left. So I had no concept of what an adult working life looked like as a civilian coming out the other side. If there's one thing I'd say don't dip or change, it's your work ethic, it's your timings, it's your everything. Like if that's the only thing, just keep that, because that'll set you apart more than anything else.
Yeah, and it is those 1% things that leave good impressions too.
100%.
It's good discipline.
Yeah.
It's basic. It's such a basic concept, but one that I don't know why people can't get it. I mean, I guess that's why we're here, aren't we? Having this conversation.
Yeah.
So then, man, like, was it? So you were consulting, and then was it always property? Like, did you always have a thing for property?
Yeah, I think I always had a thing for investing, I'd say, as the first point. I always had a thing for investing. I invest in the share market. I invest in a few different things. I then eventually did invest in property, but it was always investing. And then once I sort of started going down more of the property route, and once I started sort of learning a little bit more as well, that's where it really became the focus for me.
Yeah. And have you touched on crypto at all?
I have, but I'll be honest, it was all speculative. It was a bit of like, I'll throw $1,000 here and there, just buy something and see what happens.
Mate, nearly all of it is anyway, mate. It's like $1,000 hit on a pokie machine, Well, I'd say 90% of it is $1,000. It's $1,000 hit on, where's the gold, or the Red Baron or something like that.
Big Red.
Yeah, Big Red, yeah, one of those. I can't tell, we haven't played many, mate, yeah. We spend our money wisely here, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, mate, how do you think your military service has helped you become successful in business? Just touching on that discipline and sort of, work ethic. What else do you think's helped you in getting successful in your business?
I think it really comes down to those 1% things. If I'm being really honest, I don't think I learned anything revolutionary. I think that no matter what career you had in the military, the skills that we all learn in our basic training equivalents, honestly, is what I try to bring into business every day, right? Discipline, timeliness, work ethic, attention to detail. That's probably another big one. Like the amount of times I see people just miss the easy, simple stuff. And I'm like, guys, just take an extra 30 seconds. And if you can do it a bit better, then you'll just be set up so much better. I don't know. I genuinely find it is those really, really small things. I think I don't think I've done anything special, put it that way, right? And we are not some unicorn business or anything like that anyway, but I don't really think that I've done anything special or we're doing anything special. I think it's just we put our heads down, we just get the work done, whether it's a 2 a.m. meeting like what you were saying before, or whether it's an early start, I think 3 weeks ago I was having to take flights, 6 a.m. takeoff. I was going, fuck, I booked it myself. I was like, fuck, I should have just booked it later.
Yeah.
That
always happens. You get to the airport, you're like, what am I doing? Why don't I just book it for 8 o'clock like a normal human would? Yeah.
Literally. And I'm the boss, right? I had nobody over me saying you had to get that flight, and I just did it. And it's, I don't know. I don't have a magic pill, and I don't want people to think that there is a magic pill. And I guess that's something that I see on the investing side and what I do in the business is people come, they're like, oh, what's a good property? What's the best property? What do I do? And I say to them, there's no magic pill, right? A lot of it is boring. A lot of it is the success that you get. Nobody sees the hard work that went on behind it. No one sees the 2 a.m. meetings, the 6 a.m. flights, the stressed because the bank accounts dipped a bit low. They just see the end result of it. But it's just the I think we talk about in the book, actually, it's the aggregation of marginal gains. It's the get 1% better every day and, you'll do all right.
Yeah. And then because you have with your 10 steps in your book, A Military Guide to Property Investing, you have a good breakdown of using that military mindset. So do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, 100%. Look, and I think a lot of people who pick up the book will probably almost maybe have a bit of a laugh at some of the chapter titles, because how often did we have defense values, army values, different things sort of almost rammed down our throats to an extent, and we sort of sit there sometimes and go oh fuck, all right, I get it, mandatory training, all right, Navy values are these, Army values are these, but I thought it was a really good way to think about property, because as much as we sometimes laugh about it and as much as sometimes, when we're getting a bone in, it was the thing that was used, where was your honesty? Where was your integrity? Things like that. I think that they were genuinely really good things to take into business, civilian life, or in this case, property investing. And I guess that sort of leads me into the book, which is that, we've got 10 steps that we think is, how to really successfully invest in property. And all of them are based on defense principles, or I guess defense practices, So for example, teamwork, that's one of the big ones. And in the property context, it's, you need a good team around you, a good accountant, a good solicitor, a good buyer's agent, a good mortgage broker, and there's other people as well. But without that teamwork, same as when you're still in uniform, it'll be really hard to achieve success. What's that saying? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That sort of mindset.
Yeah. And the military values, they're written for a reason and they work.
Yeah.
And it's just, a lot of the time it's really simple, but it's overlooked by a lot of people.
100%. I think my two favorite chapters in the books are steps 5 and 6, which is excellence and mission analysis. And I think that they're the two things that are so key to being in uniform, right? And it's those small things like be brilliant at the basics. I think that's my favorite saying that I got out of the military. I don't know if you guys heard that over your time. But
it's probably 1,000 times.
Yeah.
At least, probably 1,000 times a week.
Yeah. But I think that's the thing, right? And I guess that's like that 1% discussion we're having, right? If you can be brilliant at the basics, you build on that. But if you can't even do the basics, how are you going to do anything advanced? So I think that, it's just all those things. It's bringing in just all those little nuances, all those little skills. Doesn't matter if you're a private or whether you are a Navy captain. We've all learned the same stuff, and all those things, whether it's about property, which is obviously the context of the book, or whether it's business, or whether it's just a transition, whether you go be a chippy, a plumber, whatever the job is. I think all those things are just so applicable to everything that we do day to day.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. The big thing about teamwork, and I relate to this quite a bit. People want to do things by themselves because they believe they're going to make more money. We see it all the time in this industry. It's the same with what you just said then. They believe they're going to make more money by themselves. So why should I be paying a mortgage broker? Why should I be getting a buyer's agent? Well, because you're going to get a better result. It's simple. The better the team, the bigger the result. And people don't care what happens, the hard work. They don't care. They only care about the big results at the end. And like you said, they don't value teamwork, some of them. You need a better team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think definitely something I've realized as a business owner is scale is a really interesting thing that you don't really understand until you start playing around with some bigger numbers. And I guess going to what you're saying about money, like if you went up to somebody and said like, you could make $40,000 doing, I don't know, X, Y, whatever it is. You make $40,000. Or you could make $100,000, but you're going to have to split it amongst the team, right? And maybe get 50%, right? A lot of people probably wouldn't probe further to sort of understand like how much they might make out of the 100,000. They'd just probably go, oh wait, I got to split it. I'd rather just do the 40,000 and do it myself. But if you can make 50% of that 100 or 60% by doing it together, you might have a few headaches, working with people, and you might think you can do it better than everyone else. But by working as a team, you get a much better result. And I think people really struggle to sort of conceptualize that at times.
Yeah, that's like even using a buyer's agent. There's so much. I think people might not quite understand what a buyer's agent does. But I've used them, and there's so much value in getting that professional to do all the hard lifting for you. And in this country, if you do use one, you make your money back the next day, pretty much. But do you want to touch on a bit more on what a buyer's agent actually does? And because it is like it's a strategic game, and I think having someone with your background, it's a perfect fit.
Yeah, definitely. So a buyer's agent, putting it really simply, a real estate agent represents the seller or the vendor of a property, and a buyer's agent represents the buyer of a property. The big things are that, because there is a bit of misinformation out there, I will say. I mean, you see a lot of, for example, people flogging house and land packages, and sometimes they might try and call themselves a buyer's agent. But to me, a buyer's agent realistically is representing the purchaser or buyer's interests, and that usually means that the buyer is actually paying them, right? Sometimes you get these groups or people that sell, and house and land package is the easy one because the way that they make money is off a developer, and then often they'll get people in, particularly ex-military, and go, "Oh, we'll sort it all for you," and there's no sort of fee paid, and they probably do look after your interest, 9 times out of 10, but because realistically, it comes down to if you're not paying somebody, but somebody else is, whose interest do you think are going to look after when push comes to shove? Where's that conflict lying? So for me as a buyer's agent, I get paid by the client, and it means that my interests are 100% aligned with the clients, and there's no conflicts there whatsoever. And I think that's probably something. If you are out there listening and thinking about using a buyer's agent, make sure you ask how the commissions or money is getting transferred and changing hands, because that's important. But for me, we focus on investment. So some buyer's agents might help people buy their own home. Some people might help people invest. Some people might, sort of dabble in the middle. For us, we focus solely on investment, and we go around the country. So we just follow the data, the research, the analysis to find people the best location, agnostic of where it is, and that's why our interest is so aligned with our client being the purchaser.
Yeah. And then what's your sort of, how do you do blue chip stuff, or do you look at things that will give you a passive income, or?
Well, we sort of do across the board, right? And we really align it with the client more than anything because everyone's sort of at a different stage. But generally speaking, we sort of have a bit of a formula, I guess, for building out the portfolio. And at the start, which is, where a lot of people we see are at, because it is hard to build those big portfolios. At the start, it's about trying to balance cash flow and growth. If you go down to Bondi, you buy a nice pad right on the beach. If you could afford it, firstly.
Who can afford that?
Yeah.
Can I get a job with them? Whoever's listening to that, you got any jobs going?
But for those guys, they won't be getting like a 1% yield. They're going to be forking out, probably 10, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in mortgage repayments, in expenses on top of what they get recoup in rent. So really highly negatively geared, very difficult to scale. Other end of it is, in the middle of nowhere, really high cash flow. Maybe think of, say, a mining town or something like that, but no growth. Cash flow is good, but it doesn't really help you scale with your equity into future properties. So we try to find that balance. We don't want to sacrifice too much growth. We don't want to sacrifice too much cash flow, and building out properties where we can sort of balance both sets people up to build those large portfolios. That's where we really focus for most of our clients. And then once they're through that foundational building stage, that's where we then look at other stuff like, maybe it's commercial, maybe it's blue chip stuff, maybe it's development stuff. But just once their portfolio is quite secure and quite, robust and able to weather a storm if, say, something happened.
So every military personnel, male or female, should be coming to you in their first year instead of pissing it all up the wall. You got 4 years at minimum to build or start a portfolio because you're on a decent wage. It's guaranteed wage as well. So, I mean, if you're hitting a buyer's agent in your first year, I wish I'd have done that.
Yes.
The amount of beer I bought, I could have bought 10 houses. But you would suggest that, going and see a buyer's agent in your first year of service and then building, a portfolio over that 4 years. That would be a smart move, I would say. And it would put people into better shape when they discharge as well. They might be a little bit more happy. They're like, the military might have cooked my knees and my back, but, at least I got 2 houses out of this.
Yeah, don't spend all your deployment money on a HSV.
Yeah, no Maloos and Rangers and stuff, yeah.
I was going to say the big Raptor.
Yeah, classic. Yeah, that's funny you say that because our co-owner, our co-founder here has a black Raptor. Pretty ironic, actually.
Different stage of life, though, than the 19-year-old with their 3 times the salary done out for a big Raptor or something. But,
ours was the HSV, like the classic Maloo ute. It was like a Holden, show yard in there. It was ridiculous. It was just Maloo after Maloo after Maloo. It was pretty cool to see, but yeah, great waste of money.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, look, I think more if there's one thing I'd probably say, like whether it's shares, crypto, property, whatever it is, time in the market is more important than anything else. So the earlier you start, the more time you have for success, or if something goes wrong, to then fix that failure and then move on to the success. But just have the conversations, right? Like talk to a buyer's agent, talk to people that work in crypto, talk to people who work in the share market. Read, like get online. I mean, there's so much information out there now. There's watch a couple of YouTube videos, get a bit of knowledge, and that'll be the biggest thing you can do, right? Because like I have clients who come and they don't know anything. And that's very easy for me, right? Because I want them to succeed and I will guide them and I'll grab their hand and I'll take them down the pathway. But when people come to me and they do have a bit of knowledge, it means we have some really good conversations as well. And they can learn even more out of it because they know the questions to ask, things like that. Ultimately, they get the same paper result, which is great property, things like that. But the intangible stuff around the knowledge that people get when they do start to invest in themselves a little bit more often can actually be way more worthwhile than the stuff we might do with them in terms of purchasing.
Yeah, and it's really key. Like I've not long. Well, it's going to settle next week, hopefully, my first investment property. And
congrats.
Thank you. But yeah, I would have spent 200 hours listening to podcasts on YouTube, reading. Like I've heard you a lot, Lachlan. You just can't know everything. And I still used a buyer's agent. And like, because I still thought it was extremely worth it. And it just goes to show whatever you're dabbling in, just make sure you spend plenty of time just trying to understand what you're actually doing.
It's not hard either. You've got every resource at your fingertips now, so you can literally get on your iPhone 13, probably should have bought more houses instead of buying that too. But you get on that and, a buyer's agent provides you knowledge right across the country. There's no way in hell I'm going to sit there and look through realestate.com and then do the math on absolutely every house across the country. That's just ridiculous. That's why you pay the professionals to do it, because they can do it a lot more streamlined for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And like there's a million and one ways that we give value to a client, right? But the one that I always come back to as like, if there was only one thing I could say to try and, punch across the line where value lies, because we do this day in, day out, knowing the market so well, often knowing the agents because we've done deals with them before and things like that, they know that we're a solid purchaser, things like that. When we can go in and negotiate like maybe 15, 20, 30K straight away off the property, and that, that could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times our service fee just saved in negotiating alone, let alone all the time, all the hours, all the analysis, all the post-purchase stuff in terms of managing the settlement. It's all been saved 3-4 times over in the front end on the negotiating alone.
Yep. Yeah. So the value is that you've already provided the value straight off the bat.
Yeah, exactly right.
And you also help with strategy too, don't you?
Yeah. And I guess that goes to your question before when you said whether we do blue chip or other stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, it really comes down to the client's sort of position, what they want to achieve, things like that. That's where our strategy piece comes into it, to sit down, hear about where they're at, hear about where they want to be, and try to work out the best way to get them there.
Yeah, because I'm sure you'd look at things differently if someone was 20 years old opposed to 40 or 50 years old.
Absolutely. And again, it comes down to big things are always time, risk, capacity. They're probably the big three, because there's a lot of ways to make $1 million, but if you've only got a day to make $1 million, then suddenly there's not many ways you can do it. But if you've got 10 years to make $1 million, then, a lot less risky, a lot more methods. So, yeah, they're the big three that I sort of try to talk to people about.
Specky mining stocks, eh?
Yeah.
Love a good specky mining stock. So from here, what would your plans be moving forward with your business and the business success? Are you looking at scaling up as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've already grown our team out. We've sort of hired a bunch more people. We're, growing our office footprint. We're going to hire even more people. So that side of the business is really going well. We're, looking at other stuff as well. We're looking at a couple of different tech ideas as well to sort of really try to help shake up the property landscape, but they're quite early on, so there's not much to tell about them just yet. But yeah, for us, it's just all about continuing to help grow. One of my roles is I sit on the board of PIPA, which is Property Investment Professionals of Australia, and they're sort of like the peak industry body, I guess, for people who work as a property professional on the investment side. And I'm really doing some good work with them and trying to help them grow awareness and also a bit of regulation, because I think property is it can be a bit of a cowboy's game if you get the wrong person in your corner. So yeah, I guess for us it's just about helping to grow awareness, grow the education side, help more people, help more vets. I love having or currently serving people. Yeah, they're probably the big things we're focusing on at the moment.
Yeah, sweet. And you're also teaching. What?
Yeah.
So you're at University of New South Wales at the business school. That's a pretty prestigious school, isn't it?
Yeah, it's I think it's like second or third in the country, and I think it's top 30 or so in the world for business. So yeah, for me, I remember what it was like when I was going through university, and I'm sure it's my lens is through university, but it's the same when you were on an IET or whether you were on anything. If you couldn't identify with the people teaching you, it can be really hard to sort of learn and really absorb the knowledge and grow, I guess. And I like to be a solution, not just another person whinging about the problem. So I thought, you know what? why don't I just put my hat in the ring and see if I could go over there and do a bit of teaching. And being sort of in my mid to late 30s, 20s, for me, it's a lot easier to identify with an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old than it is somebody who's 50 or 60, hasn't worked in industry for years, just been an academic their whole life. And, you've got these people sitting there on Instagram and the person teaching doesn't even know, they've still got an iPhone 4,
Yeah.
So
They're not up with it.
Wanted to do
it.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not adapting. They're just still, they're just stuck in their academic way. Without adaptation, people won't listen. I wouldn't sit there and listen to a dude that had an iPhone 4 and teach me about tech or business in 2022. Like, mate, you're 20 years behind the 8 ball, mate.
Yeah. And it's funny. It's I got my teaching evaluations back from the last term, and funnily enough, a lot of the comments were just about the engagement and about being able to bring contemporary examples into whatever material it was that was being taught. And that was what I wanted to do. So for me, I saw that as a big success. But I guess for the students, I just remember what it was like when you learn the things, and they're going to forget, 2/3 of it, and I know that. But I remember when I was learning the stuff that I've learned, that there was always just these little, you always remember a particular teacher, or you always remember a particular subject or a particular concept because of something that really resonated with you. And I just wanted to try and bring that in, try and bring things so that they would just, even if they hold 20% more information than people in the same subject but with a different teacher.
Did you do that through engagement, like trying to get them engaged more?
Yeah.
So I feel as though I learn a lot better when I'm engaging, not just sitting there and taking notes and whatnot, but actually being engaged by the person who's teaching the subject.
Yeah. And absolutely. I mean...
Sorry, mate, go on.
No, that's all right.
I was just going to say, if you're seeing a bloke who's out there killing it in the real world and then is coming in and teaching you, you're going to sit up and listen because obviously you think this guy sort of knows what he's talking about.
I don't know about killing it, but I'll take it.
I'll take it. Yeah. So, mate, you got to take them where you can get them, mate, because they don't come around that often. A compliment.
The small wins, right?
Yeah, there's that little 1% for the day. I'll take that. Yeah, love it.
But no, I think you're absolutely right. When you've got people sort of similar age, maybe something similar that they want to do. Like I'm sure there's somebody that was probably sitting in one of my classes that thought, I want to start a business one day. Obviously, I've started a business. I think you're right. It's just being able to identify, right? You try to wear. I guess I tried to be a bit of a chameleon, right? Try and wear as many different skins and colors as I could so that everyone could try and find something about the way that I approached it, whether it was engagement or, a background or an idea or something, so that they could identify with something I did so that it would help them to go, oh, I want to try and listen, or I want to try and learn.
Yeah, nice.
And then just getting back onto the property thing, because I could talk to you for hours about it. But I'm sure a few of the listeners who might have a mortgage or are looking at getting one, and then seeing the craziness over the last 2 years, and now with the rates coming up again, in the media it all seems a bit doomy and gloomy. What's your perspective on what's going on?
The sun will still rise tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's right.
I did another podcast with a property-specific platform a week or two ago, and we were talking about exactly this. And I'll say what I said there, which was that sentiment is the biggest problem. And media is the worst culprit for this, because when times are good, all they do is write positive headlines, and everyone thinks times are great and that they're going to last forever. And then when it gets to, I guess, kind of what we're getting to now, which is not that there's anything particularly wrong, but when there's just a bit of a change in the market and we're not having a once in a probably 40 or 50 year cycle occurring, suddenly everything is going to shit and the world's going to end. And it's not, right? I think I did the maths for that podcast. I think what we worked out was if you had a $500,000 mortgage, the interest rate rise that happened, that 0.25%, that happened, it was an extra like $100 a week or $200 a week. I can't remember the exact numbers, but right, really small scale. And when rents are going up 10, 15, 20% as well, if you already own a property, it is well and truly offsetting whatever it is that's sort of going on around the mortgage rates, So my advice to everyone is just take a bit of a breath. When you actually run the numbers, you realize that everything is okay, right? And all you've got to do is just make sure you don't get yourself into a bit of a spiral thinking that something's going wrong. And realistically, there's going to be some great deals, and we're already starting to see them, but there are going to be more great deals occurring because people are going to shit the bed and they're going to run scared. And it's going to just be it's going to be a great opportunity for people who want to take advantage.
And the rate's not even scary at the moment. So we saw record low rates. I think we locked ours in at something stupid like 2.1% for 5 years. We are never going to see that again. And people, they're starting to cry, 0.25, we're going to go broke. But 0.25 on top of 2.1 and you're going broke, mate, you are over leveraged, you idiot. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
How can that go wrong at 0.235? Like, man, I don't get it, but I guess people are leveraged to the hills at the moment. So,
but to be fair as well, people either don't know or don't understand or maybe just don't care. But when you go to the bank and you get a mortgage, the banks had much higher assessment rates. Even in these really low interest rate periods, they had much higher assessment rates than what people are paying. And I can't remember what it was. I think it was either your rate plus 3% if your rate was above a certain number, or if not, then it brought it up and then it added, I think, a 2.5% buffer, something like that. But they sort of flicked around with it. But anyway, the point is that most people will probably be being assessed for 5.5%, 6%, 6.5%, 7% type repayments, and they're nowhere near that. And people have to just understand that you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? If you're going to invest, maybe it means you have to forego one Uber Eats meal a week when, it starts to go up a little bit. But your lifestyle doesn't really change because you've got to go to Woolies and buy an extra steak as opposed to getting a couple of burgers delivered,
Yep. Yeah, that's right. And you're right in saying that, because I know my broker said to me, he's like, they're going to be assessing you on a normal rate opposed to what we've been lucky enough to have in the last few years.
Lucky the banks don't look at our Uber Eats receipts, or else we'd be stuffed. I mean, they'd never give me a loan based on my Uber Eats receipt. Jeez. You could afford that house in Bondi if you stopped eating Uber Eats. Yeah. That's funny. Perspective, isn't it?
Well, and that's it, right? And I think it's so hard when you jump on Facebook or you get the Apple News alert on your phone or whatever, and property for the last 2 years has just been a positive story, and now it's a negative story. But point is, it's still a story in some respect. If you go back, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 years ago, where things were just pretty normal, some markets were up, some were flat, some were a little bit down. Property was barely making entries, like it was maybe like once a week, twice a week you see something. But now it's like every day, multiple headlines a day. It's hard to sort of cut through that noise and not get let whatever the sort of sentiment or feeling behind those stories is creep into your headspace.
That's right. And it comes down to, again, I think, if you're a bit educated and you get into the space and you can see these headlines and sort of see straight through them.
Yeah.
Well, this is when things start going south and the bargains start popping up, this is what makes people successful. They're like, they've got the money ready to rock and roll to snap up these bargains, and then they reap the rewards in 5 to 10 years when this cycle comes back on itself. They get growth and the rent too. So, a bit 100%. Of education goes a long way here. You just need to squirrel that money away and get ready for these bargains. That's how the rich get richer, and, successful get more successful. Is that fear to greed index, isn't it? When shit starts going south, they got money ready to roll.
And look, my hot tip for everyone is that there's a massive, massive, massive undersupply of properties all around the country, right? I think I did a news piece last week as well, actually, and it was around the fact that by 2030 nationally, we're going to be deficient by about 130,000 properties by 2030 on where we should be. Because of that, simple economics, supply and demand, I don't know when, if prices start to drop out a little bit now, I have every confidence it won't be very much, but it's not going to take long for that to rebound again, because simple economics, right? There is such a lack of supply, but the demand is there, right? The demand is so high. There is no reason that there wouldn't be continual increases.
That's right. I know where I live. There's a bit of a rental crisis going on, and this that's the scary thing is when you see people living out of their cars because they can't get a property.
Yeah, it's a big problem. We actually had a property that we bought for a client, and we bought it with vacant possession. So there was tenants, but we said, "Oh no, we don't want to carry them over," because, to be honest, they were really not great tenants, and they just refused to leave the property because they couldn't get another property to rent. So it went on for like probably 4 months, and it was meant to be a 2-month settlement. Actually, I think it went on for almost 5 months, and it was a 2-month settlement. It was over the Christmas period. And we ended up having to rescind or cancel the contract of sale because they just refused to leave, and we weren't going to take them on because we knew that they were pretty average tenants. And they just flat out refused to leave. For a number of reasons, we didn't have much legal recourse to get them out, just for some complicating factors. So we said, all right, we're going to cut bait and go somewhere else because of that. But I mean, they're obviously going to feel the repercussions with blacklistings and tenant databases and stuff like that. Yeah. But, I could still empathise to a degree with them that, they did turn down some good properties and there were other options. But, they did choose to sort of put their head in the sand a little bit. But I could still empathise a touch that there is this crisis. And that was something that we had as a real life example with a client at the start of the year.
So a good time to be building. Oh, if you can get the supplies, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a hard one as well, though, because, for a lot of the build stuff, it's on the fringes. It's not necessarily in the best spots, but and building materials are obviously so high, like you were saying, cost and difficulty to find. But I guess I've always been an established suburb type person rather than a house and land or a new build type thing. But, some people do it and some people are successful. But for us, we sort of don't do that.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. Like,
for investment anyway. If you're gonna build a house to live in, I think that's great. Like fill your boots, build your dream home wherever it is. That's great. But I guess my personal ethos is just sort of different. But
people might get excited about seeing things, like your depreciation schedules on the new house and all that, and but yeah, that's why people come to someone like you, and you can actually sit them down and explain why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, my partner's dad still swears by building. No matter how many times I talk to him, and he's got plenty of properties under his belt, but he just says no, it's what I do and I like it. It's I guess it's that difference.
Yeah, if it's not broken, I guess there's no need to fix it.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, we might wrap things up. Do you want to tell us where we can find you, your socials, website, where we can buy your book?
Yeah. Well, I mean, thanks everyone for tuning in, firstly, and thanks guys for having me on.
I appreciate it for coming on, mate. It was insightful at the very least. So I took a lot out of that as well, actually. I need to go back and have a good, hard, long look at my portfolio. Like maybe I should pull some money out of these risky mining stocks.
Mate, I mean, we all need a specky, don't we?
It'll pay. It'll pay. Just let it go down 90% and I'll get it out. I'll buy high, buy high, sell low. That's the key, I think.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out eventually.
I mean, people can find us all over social media. So Atlas Property Group on Facebook and Atlas Property Group on Instagram and LinkedIn. We post lots of stuff. Otherwise, you can jump on our website, which is just atlaspropertygroup.com.au. You can buy a book from there. You can buy the book in Dimmicks, Amazon, all those big major bookstores as well. And then, I think we might have a little guide on our website as well. So you can sign up to our mailing list, and, we send out a couple of emails once or twice a week as well, where we put out, lots of educational content and stuff like that.
Yeah, awesome. And we'll put your website and your Instagram when we start.
Yeah, when we get it going, and I think it needs to be said as well, especially for all the military boys and all the AJs that are listening here. You don't have to be in the same city as a buyer's agent. You can do it remotely. You don't have to go into his office. You can get him over the phone, get him via email, and he'll do all the work for you remotely. I think that's a good key point.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, we've literally got clients in Abu Dhabi. We've got clients in the Philippines. We've got clients all across the country. Most of the time people want to jump on Zoom anyway. So, yeah, appreciate that because it is a good point. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter whether you're, Tiwi Islands off Darwin or whether you're in Sydney. But, you just want to jump on Zoom, which is, what we do for a lot of people anyway. We can help wherever you are.
Yeah, easy, mate.
Cool. Well, thanks very much, Lachlan. We'll let you get back to your day, mate, Monday morning. Go get at it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, mate. The Wardogs NFT mission and team and all related podcast episodes and content are provided for general information purposes only and do not constitute accounting, legal, tax or other professional advice. Visitors should not act upon the content or information found here without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer or other professional.